Hey, welcome to another episode of Open World Chat. We're back. I'm John Odom, and I'm with Mark Card, my co-host. Mark, what's up?
Hey, what's going on? I think it's time we had a discussion.
He's saying that because we're talking about time travel, all kinds of time travel, every kind of time travel. So I think I was the one who suggested this one, right? Or did you talk about it, Mark?
I think we both came up with this.
We
I think,
both.
this is universal. I mean, every subgenre of science fiction includes some kind of time travel in it.
It's crazy too, because I had no idea how much our genre fiction has come to depend on time travel. I started thinking about it, and I started coming up with so many different movies, so many different, stories, so many different approaches to it. But 99% of them since H.G. Wells and The Time Machine. That's what
Yeah,
killed me. I mean, there's little snippets of it before actually going way back
yeah.
to there's the Hindu epic Mahabharata, which I just screwed up the name of. Mahabharata. No, I have it written in front of me. Did you encounter that one?
No, I didn't find that one. I wasn't really looking for the origin of time travel, but it makes sense. I mean, this is such it's a concept that I think time itself, I think, is as close as we're ever going to get to kind of a universal concept. There may be different imaginings of it, but
Hmm.
in human literature, it's very difficult to kind of never find a reference to time and its changing nature.
Well, the old Hindu one is one that you see a couple other times really early on. It's like the only time, and that's time dilation,
Yeah,
where somebody goes away and they come back, and hundreds or thousands or millions of years have passed.
the Rip Van Winkle effect.
Exactly, the Rip Van Winkle effect. Yeah, that pops up a little bit here and there way back, but
Yeah,
it really explodes in the last century.
yeah, yeah. It really has, and I think part of that is because of the rise of popularization of quantum physics.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, you've got to be right about that. The timing is too perfect.
Timing.
Ha ha. We're gonna be
Yes, there's
noticing
going to be
that
lots of
every
those
single
goofy
time.
things.
Yeah. So you said, now before we start going through our examples and our, probably the examples that work, the examples
Yeah,
that don't work, the ones we like, the ones we think are stupid, you had found, I was trying to think of different models of time travel, and I came up with three or four. But you found something that broke them out even further. Why don't you
yeah.
yeah, tell me what you found, because I thought I covered them all.
So I'll go over each one of these very briefly, and we can talk about examples and just kind of just as an introduction to it. There are eight actually, and I would add
Eight.
another one. I would add a ninth one, which I've seen mentioned in one context, but never really much in science fiction, although there's a great example of it. I'll say that one for the last.
Hmm.
So the first one is anything goes. People can go back and forward in time however they want without any kind of reference to actual physics. And there are lots of great examples of this. There's Bill and Ted. There's Hot Tub Time Machine.
That's
There's
interesting. Go ahead.
Austin Powers. There's Men in Black 3, Deadpool 2. People can go back and forth and do whatever they want in time. That has no bearing to anything except fantasy and science fiction writing. Another good example of that is well, maybe it's not. Oh, I know a great example of this, and that's it's not from movies. It's from a book that I would love to see made into a movie. Stephen King's 11/22/63.
Don't know it.
Oh, that's his time travel book about the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, I've heard of it.
Yeah, yeah. I started it, but then got interrupted and couldn't really get a chance to get back to it. It's pretty good.
Hmm.
It's pretty interesting. A guy finds an invisible tunnel to the days before Kennedy was killed.
Hmm.
And it's a really interesting novel, at least the first, couple hundred pages I read. And with a Stephen King novel, a couple hundred pages in, you're, 10% through the book.
Yeah. Huh. Well, keep going because I want to
Okay.
tell you my four when we're done because we've already gotten to, I mean, we've already crossed into something that just doesn't jibe with my own four, but the ones that you
Right.
got are probably better. But anyway, keep going.
The next one is called Branch Reality or the Multiverse.
Hmm.
And so, a common trope in time travel is that, oh my God, this is based on the short story about the dinosaur that steps on the butterfly.
Hmm.
And I should know the name of this story, but I don't because I'm old.
The butterfly
Uh,
effect.
um, and that is that well, the butterfly effect is something very different. The butterfly effect actually applies to chaos theory. Um, So this says that the convention is in time travel is that you go back. If you change anything in the past, it could radically change the future. So that kind of more conventional thing you might find in uh, the Star Trek episode. Is that Journey on the Edge of Forever?
City on the Edge Forever.
City on the Edge of Forever,
Hmm.
where they have to go back and fix time. But branch reality says if you go back to the past and change it, it doesn't change your future when you return, it splits off the timeline.
Hmm.
So now you have two realities which exist simultaneously, parallel, and separate from each other. You go
Hmm.
back in time and do it again, you're going to get a third one. Go back in time again, you're going to get a fourth one. So anybody who time travels creates a super super n dimension number of realities. Now,
Hmm.
this actually is something. It's a theory that emerges from actual quantum mechanics, and so that theory is called the many worlds theory, which says that there are an infinite number of universes with an infinite number of outcomes. So
Right.
that universe where you didn't end up marrying the person you wanted to marry, well, somewhere in that universe you did.
Right on. When you didn't stub your toe, but somewhere in another universe you did.
Right.
Hence
The
the
third
infinite.
one is time dilation. Oh, by the way, some other examples of that. Loki, the whole Marvel Infinity Saga is based on the multiverse idea. If you're a comic person, you really get it.
Well, it is and it isn't, and we'll get back to that
Okay.
because
Um,
they have a problem committing to that. But go ahead.
well, oh no, comics have a problem committing to a specific
Well, I was actually thinking of
framework.
the MCU, but anyways.
Yeah. Um, what else? Back to the Future 2 does that. There's a bunch of good examples. One of my favorites is A Wrinkle in Time, that classic science fiction novel. The
Hmm.
third type is what you call time dilation,
Right.
where, and again, this is based on real world physics, is that if you move off the planet, time will move more slowly than you're on the planet. And so as you approach the speed of light, especially the slower time goes for you.
Okay.
In this particular model, there is only traveling to the future. You cannot travel to the past. And if you read anything about this, it's crazy. If I'm standing and you're sitting and we both see something go by us in the nighttime sky, you and I perceive that at different speeds.
Hmm.
So that's time dilation. There are a lot of great examples of this. Planet of the Apes is the classic one, but Interstellar is the same way. Ender's Game, all of these are time dilation. One of my favorite examples of time dilation is in the novels and the mini series on one of the streaming services. I want to say it's Netflix, the three body problem.
Hmm.
Type four is that called the I've seen better names for this, but it's called This Always Happened.
Hmm.
So Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is a great example of this one. So here's how it works. All of time is fixed on a predestined loop in which time traveling is part of what sets that predestined loop into motion.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you can time travel, but you have zero free will when you go back. You can only time travel to make sure what was supposed to happen actually happens. Um, and the one that really comes to mind for me with this always happened is there are a couple of these in Star Trek, but in Deep Space Nine, where they Cisco ends up back in time in the when there's about to be a whole bunch of riots of poor people because they've been put in camps in America.
Right. I know
They come,
it's
they
frighteningly prophetic there, but anyway.
yeah, they come to the conclusion that the only way for them to have the reality they have is for Cisco to take the role of the revolutionary leader who leads this uprising.
Hmm.
There are other examples of it, though. Terminator and Terminator 2, uh, the Game of Thrones season 6. So time, that's the whole thing about Hodor, by the way.
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh
so
yeah.
so you can only travel back in time, and your traveling back in time must actually happen. So no matter what iteration of time travel you have, you will end up doing the same thing every time. You have no free will, you have no agency. There's nothing you can do about it. The whole reason why you travel back in time is to change the situation. I mean, is to ensure the situation that you ended up in anyway. Uh, Type 5, you would call precognition, where you don't actually travel in time, but you get a premonition of what's about to happen. And you can either try to change that or not. And so the question in this kind of time travel is, will you be able to affect the change in whatever happens to get to where you want to be, or to where that vision you saw does or doesn't happen, whatever the outcome is you want?
It's so interesting how the different way I went at this, but yeah, keep going. I can't wait to switch over and tell you what I was thinking.
My favorite example of this is a movie, it's kind of a little obscure movie. It's called Next. Have you seen that?
I haven't. No.
Nick Cage and Jessica Biel. Nick Cage plays a guy who works in Vegas because he can see the future, but only 5 minutes into the future.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I did see this. I did.
It's a
I
great
did.
movie.
There's a
Uh,
train thing and there's a bomb. Am I
yes,
crazy? Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, it was fun. I don't know why it didn't stick in my head, but I
yeah.
remember enjoying it.
This is a great little movie. This is terrific. The other good example of that is what Doctor Strange does with uh, the whole Infinity Saga, where he goes through and he sees the what is it, 14 million and five different alternatives in the fight to defeat Thanos, and only one will get him there.
Hmm.
He can't tell Tony Stark that he's about, oh, spoilers, that he's about to, off it, but
Spoilers.
he has to keep them on that path. Of course, there's a very old, a 19th century example of this, and that's A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I didn't think of that one.
Yeah. So that's precognition. The next one is familiar and arguably the most popular, at least since the early 90s, which is the time loop or Groundhog Day.
Hmm.
So you relive the same period over and over and over and over and over again. And you relive that period until you either give up and accept that you're going to relive that period, or until you can find the right uh, course of action to get you out of that period. The
Hmm.
one that most people are going to think about is going to be Groundhog Day
Right.
because it's so ground into the culture. But there are some really great ones out there. Edge of
Oh my God, yeah.
Edge of Tomorrow, one of my favorite movies where Emily Blunt is a total badass, arguably more so than Tom Cruise. Where of course Tom Cruise keeps waking up and getting killed and waking up and getting killed and waking up and getting killed.
Hmm.
So that's a great movie. But my favorite one, this is great, is in the original Doctor Strange movie, how Doctor Strange convinces Dormammu not to mess with the Earth anymore.
You know what's funny is you said the original Doctor Strange movie, and I went straight into the, what was it, the 1979 one?
Oh no, 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 no.
And
I'm
I
just
was
under
thinking,
the
God, there
MCU.
was time. No, I got you. All right, I'm back.
So this is great. This is victory by frustration. So Dormammu is hell bent on smashing the dimensional barrier between his dimension and Earth to take it over. And so Doctor Strange puts him in a time loop and just constantly negotiates. He ends up getting killed every time until Dormammu goes, "I'm tired of this time loop. I can't win, but you don't lose." And so Doctor Strange says, "All right, fine. Well, let's make a deal. You stop messing with me, and I'll take you out of this eternal time loop." Another great one is the episode of Star Trek that has Kelsey Grammer in it.
Yeah, at
Star
the
Trek:
very
The
end.
Next Generation.
You know, one of my favorites is a Stargate episode too, where it just happens to Jack and Teal'c. And
Yeah. See,
they,
here's the thing. I didn't watch Stargate. I know. I shouldn't be doing this podcast if I haven't watched Stargate. I saw the original movie,
Mhm.
but but I have not seen that yet.
Well, it's a fun episode because they start realizing that nothing they do really matters. So they start going crazy with it and like learning things and acting out real bizarre things because they're like, it doesn't matter. We're going to start the day again. So they have fun with it that way in a way that I hadn't seen otherwise.
The next one is called Unstuck Mind, and in Unstuck Mind, uh, you travel within your body to life at different parts of your age. So, like X-Men Days of Future Past,
Right.
where they send
They send
Wolverine's
Kitty.
mind back in
Oh,
time.
Wolverine. I went to the comics again
Yeah,
where they send Kitty. But
yeah.
anyway.
But they send Wolverine in the movie back in time to try and convince them to change what happened so they can get to a different reality than they have now.
Mhm.
The classic one in modern fiction is Slaughterhouse Five.
Right.
And man, when you read that book when you're 13 years old, it's you stay awake at night thinking, "Hey, how does that work?" So yeah, uh, and then of course there's some of that in Lost too.
Hmm.
The next one is what's called unstuck body.
Hmm.
So this is where your body becomes detached from the flow of time. So only certain objects or bodies are unstuck from time. This is also called inverted entropy. Um, this one's a little bit, yeah. The best example of this is the experiments they're doing with time travel with Scott Lang at the very beginning. They're testing out the new time machine.
Hmm.
And every time he comes back, he's Scott Lang, but at a different age.
Hmm.
And so his body is traveling through time, but his mind is not.
Right.
And so that's a good example too. Finally, this is one that I only see mostly in passing. There's a good example uh, in genre fiction, uh, in a movie specifically, didn't see much mentioned in the types of time travel, and that's called eternalism. And this is my favorite version of this. Eternalism is actually a philosophy built on quantum physics, which says that linear time doesn't exist. And actually, there are very old uh, conceptions of time. I'm thinking back to the ancient Greece time difference. I'm jumping the gun here. So let's talk about what eternalism is. Eternalism is the idea that the concept of linear time only exists in the human mind. That time is actually uh, simultaneous. So past, present, and future are all occurring all simultaneously.
Hmm.
Now, this is really kind of hard to understand unless you think of yourself being the person experiencing externalism, or sorry, eternalism. An example of that is Dr. Manhattan from
Okay.
Watchmen. Dr. Manhattan understands time in past, present, and future, so he can't be defeated. because he knows every possible uh, permutation of every possible physical reality all at once. So he knows whether he's going to succeed or fail, or whether you're going to succeed or fail. So when he destroys you, he destroys any past, future, or present version of you, and you disappear from the universe.
Hmm.
So uh, that's eternalism, and that's my favorite kind. Because if you think about this, well, let's go back to the ancient Greek conception of time. They believed in two kinds of time: chronos and kairos. And chronos is the measurement of linear time: hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds, attoseconds, picoseconds. It's a measured thing which is linear and goes in one direction only.
Hmm.
Kairos is the idea of time being eternal, that time exists outside the human conception, and that everything happens all at once, all the time.
Hmm.
And if you believe in the idea of eternity, then this really is kind of the only way you can conceive of as time. Uh,
Yeah, which
and
gets you into all kinds of complications. It gets you into predestination, unless you believe in the, you combine it with the uh, multi-worlds theory, which actual name is escaping
well,
me.
I think
Many
multi-worlds
worlds.
theory is subsumed in eternalism,
Hmm. Yeah.
because if you can perceive time in past, present, and future all simultaneously, then you can see the origin of and all outcomes and all the steps from all the origins to all the outcomes.
Hmm.
That's a very hard thing to write, though, because it's not relatable to us silly three-dimensional humans who can't perceive time space simultaneously.
Or at least not
So
in
so
any
this is kind
particularly
of just
helpful
a
way.
this is just a distillation of the nine different kinds of time travel you see in science fiction now.
It's just so interesting because when I was making my categories, I went at it in a totally different way. I made two separate lists. I made a list of the models of time and then the sort of time travel type or medium stories. And so for the time travel type, for the medium, I had a small list and it went, first of all, the time machine. All right.
Right.
Which is just sort of this thing. You've got the time machine is one of them. The DeLorean in Back to the Future, time machine, hot tub time machine, time machine.
Right.
There's the it just happens medium,
Right.
which gets you the oddest bedfellows, right? You've got like Peggy Sue got married.
Yeah, that's one of my
Thir-
favorites.
yeah, 13 going on 30, right? But then you also have looking backward and a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. It
Right.
just sort of happens, just like it happens. There's magic of one kind or another, and that's like Somewhere in Time or Outlander, that kind of thing.
Right.
There's The Doors, really. Wormholes, The Guardian of Forever, maybe
Yeah.
Doctor Who. I had a hard time placing Doctor Who. Time Machine, yes. Also kind of Doors, probably more with Time Machine, I guess by definition.
How about the wardrobe?
Right. Well, yeah, because that does displace time, doesn't it?
Well, it not
Yeah.
only displaces time, it's a multiverse.
Yeah, it is a multiverse. Yeah, you're right about that. That one should have occurred to me. And then I have just there was a couple things I couldn't put anywhere because there was no explanation. It's the difference between it just happens, right? It just happens. Um, they don't bother telling you. It just, you wake up and you're in a different time.
Right.
So, and most of the others, they give you some kind of specific medium. Here's your door, here's your machine, whatever. But there's a few that sort of give you an explanation, but they didn't care. So they just sort of babbled something. And the two I came up with were part of the mess that is Star Trek, which we'll have to spend some time talking about. But I found two things traveling with chronotons, which are like midichlorians or something.
Yeah, right, right.
I mean, Chakotay one time got his like inoculation with chronotons, and it changed how he went through time. How does that work? And then the orb of time in Deep Space Nine, which is the thing that set up trials and tribulations, right?
Right, 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 right. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, these are both like what? They gave us a thing, but they didn't even bother trying to tether it in anything whatsoever. So I had those for the mediums, but then I had thought about lists of models of time itself. And the big one you see 90% of the time is that one timeline where contradictions can coexist, where you go back on the same timeline and you change things and it changes in the future and it doesn't make any sense because you exist, but then you don't exist. And, like, well, Star Trek does that a lot, but Terminator, the Back to the Future, that's how I looked at it, was the Back to the Future effect.
Yes. See, I always thought there was a big problem with Terminator 2.
Terminator 2 also. Terminator
Yes.
also. Sorry, Terminator
But
2.
Terminator 2, in Terminator 2, if you want to be logically consistent, this is one of the most important things about time travel ones. The ones that people are going to, I think, accept the most in terms of consequences are the ones which are the most logically consistent.
Hmm.
But if you look at this, huge difference in the number of timeline, I mean, a number of approaches to time travel that I talk about, some of them are a lot less logically consistent at all. If you apply logical consistency, the story evaporates. And I think
Right.
Terminator 2 is one of these.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason is because of these circle back on your own timeline, change the future. The logic breaks. It really does, which then leads you to the best one that nobody can stick to. And we talked about this already, and this is the many worlds. I came up with that one too. Endgame gives us the best explanation of that, how you make a change and you branch it off. It's just like you were saying. But Marvel can't stick to it because then they go to this sacred timeline nonsense. And I can't remember the name of the authority, the thing that Simonson came up
The
with.
Time Variance Authority.
Time Variance Authority, thank you. Trying to trim off branches. That doesn't work if you truly approach the many worlds in a logical way, but also in the way that it was described in Endgame. So that made for some great stories, but I think they started turning back on themselves. And I got two more. And these are all just like the stuff you were saying, just scrambled in a different way. It's so funny.
Hmm.
The one immutable history one, where you go back and you can't actually change anything because everything works out the same way. And that made me think of The Time Traveler's Wife.
Yeah.
And that's almost a Cassandra kind of thing. You can see the future, but you can't change it really going on. And then there was the consciousness traveling, which is like, well, like you were saying, like Slaughterhouse, also like Quantum Leap or Life After Life.
Yeah.
So those are the lists I came up with, which is sort of a rejumble of the stuff you came up with, although I went for the medium a little bit with the machines and
Yeah,
things.
you were looking at the mechanism uh through which you
Yeah,
end up traveling time. Yeah.
right, which is more of the sort of conceit of the story itself, than the concept of time travel so much. But so yeah, I mean, between what you just said and what I just said, you start to see how not only are these stories just everywhere, so many approaches, we spend so much time writing and creating and thinking in, ever since H.G. Wells about time travel. It's such a big part of our whole mythology here. Um, and it's a mess. But it's funny. We like to talk about our favorites and our least favorites. And now just by going over it this way, we've covered so much ground
Yeah.
already. But why don't you tell me some ones that really work for you? I mean, because sometimes it can be just sort of a MacGuffin. It can be just
Well,
something. Yeah.
I really do think that the most interesting one to me, like I said before, is eternalism. And
Mhm.
there aren't a lot of examples of this, but I think the Dr. Manhattan is a great example of it
Mhm.
because it reveals so much about his character. You know, part of the problem with Dr. Manhattan is that because he can see all origins, all midpoints, and all outcomes, is that he's increasingly disinterested in connection with humanity.
Yeah.
And so what that means for his character is the more knowledge he acquires, the less interest he has in the universe. And the logical conclusion of that is that he will eventually end up alone with only his thoughts.
Mhm.
And so the other interesting thing about this is that he knew what Ozymandias's plan was at all points in time.
Mhm.
He knew exactly what Ozymandias had planned to do with the squid, if you look at the comic books, or the nuclear weapon, fake nuclear weapons attack, if you look at the HBO show,
Mhm.
the movie and the
Yeah.
HBO show. He knew what was going to happen. He knew all of the outcomes, he knew all of the machinations. And what did he do? Nothing.
He did do nothing, but then he did intervene, which doesn't quite make sense. He intervened when he killed Rorschach.
Yeah, that's true.
What?
He intervenes when
What?
he kills Rorschach, but it doesn't affect the ultimate outcome.
Right. It doesn't, but it does bring you the question: why does he do that? I mean,
I
a
I
tricky
think
one.
I think the answer to that is, well, you don't have much of a story if he doesn't.
Well, I don't know. I'd argue with that. I think if he stays aloof, you still do, but you certainly um, don't have an emotionally impactful story
Well,
in
this
the
is what
way
I
that
mean.
is.
What I mean to say is that if he doesn't do that, it's hard to relate the story.
Hmm.
And so this, in some ways, eternalism is the most difficult thing to depict. Now, having
Yeah.
said that, the HBO series about Watchmen, which, by the way, we should know that the guy who Alan Moore, the guy who wrote the Watchmen comics, thinks the HBO series and the movie are just trash. And in fact, he said he would never have anything to do ever again with a screen adaptation with any of his.
Yeah. Well, has thought they were all trash. I mean, he's sort of
Yeah.
legendary for that. He's like, don't
Well, I
touch my
also
stuff.
think that
Everything you do with it is garbage and never. I mean, and sometimes he's right. But,
also I think really Alan Moore even thinks his own stuff is trash.
well, he's decided that the whole genre is trash.
Yeah.
Is part of it.
But
He's a weird
so
guy.
but the TV series,
Whoops, I
the
lost you.
HBO TV series of how to understand it. So in the TV series, um, he kind of hides himself and he meets somebody. It all takes place post the in between the events of uh, American winning Vietnam and what happens in the comic books.
Mhm.
And it's how, and then also, well, it's also after what happens in the comic books.
Right, right.
But he's sitting at a table talking to the person that eventually becomes his wife, and she's saying, "No, I'm not going to go out with you." And he's like, "Oh no, you already have gone out with me, and we have children."
Yeah.
And so that example kind of you have to see it. I can't really describe it because it would take too long, but that explains how to understand eternalism, how to understand what it's like if you're somebody who experiences it all at the same time.
Mhm.
And you know, this eternalism does come from kind of a quantum explanation of how time works. But that's my favorite one. And Watchmen, the TV series, explains it the best. I don't think it's necessarily the best example, but it explains it the best. So if you want to understand that, I would definitely check that out.
Mhm.
For time loops, there's a lot of great ones for time loops.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I think that's one of the most popular ones. I like the movie Looper, but Looper's a different explanation. Um, and the most interesting time loop one for me uh, is the movie Prime.
Have I seen
Prime,
Prime?
if you haven't
Tell
seen
me.
Prime, you need to see it. It's about two guys who invent a time machine and then go and look to figure out how to do the time machine and how it came about. And what you end up with is you don't end up what they call this in logic, where you have a time loop like that, is that's a recursive loop.
Hmm.
And if what Prime shows is that if you actually have time loops, what you're eventually going to get involved in is an infinite loop of infinite time loops.
Yeah, well, in Star Trek, they have no idea how many times they've gone through it. Um, in
Well, because if everybody can go back in time
mhm.
and everybody does it, then you're going to have an exponential number of time loops.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yep.
And so, really, the logical conclusion of that is that there is no time loop. They're all just loops on time loops on time loops on time loops on time loops.
Hmm.
And the other example of that is the movie Tenet. Tenet is kind of infinite loop of time loops.
Yeah, that one's definitely a mind fuck for sure.
Yeah. So that's a good one. Precognition. There are lots of good precognition ones. Oh my God, I've seen the future. Can we do what it takes to either get to the future I see, or can we do whatever it takes to not get to the future I see?
Yeah, that's a time story, but I wouldn't consider it a time travel story. Although I think it's close. But just in my mind, I feel like that's a different genre. But you know,
Well,
whatever.
I think the movie Next is the best example of that.
Hmm.
And what makes Next so good, excuse me, is the limited amount of reaction time you have.
Hmm.
If you've only got 5 minutes to think of in the future, then the number of actions you have by definition are going to be constrained.
Right, right.
And so, how you affect what's going to happen is either you have to think in a series of, in other words, what I'm saying is that that movie makes it very difficult for you to, your margin of error is much less because you
Mhm.
only got 5 minutes. If whatever action you choose isn't the right one in those 5 minutes, then you branch off to a different destiny, very different than the one you might be looking for. and be, but also because you only have 5 minutes, you the consequences of the effects of you making the wrong choice are less.
Hmm.
So it's a very constrained that movie Next is a very constrained idea of time travel, and I think because of that, it ends up being really logically consistent because both the consequences and the future steps you have to change those consequences are narrowly constrained within a certain band of choices and outcomes. It's
Yeah.
not like Dr. Manhattan, who has an infinite number of explanations, an infinite number of outcomes, and an infinite number of conditions which bring on those outcomes.
Hmm.
I was going to go back and talk about Terminator 2. See if my logic is right here. So I think that the minute the machine lowers itself into that pool of molten steel,
Hmm.
uh, the kid should disappear
The kid should disappear. Um, sure. Yeah.
because otherwise it's not logically consistent.
Hmm.
Because if they've destroyed the last bit of tech, hold on. If they deconstruct the last bit of technology, which would allow for the development of Skynet, then there's no reason for him to have been born.
There's no way he could have been born. Or no, maybe there is a way. Because one thing about the Terminator movies that's interesting, that's different. So maybe your logic is correct, but they may have built in something to get around that. And that's that there is something, some cosmic force that keeps wanting to push things in a certain way. You know, the Terminator's destroyed, everything's better, but then you have, more where that future starts happening anyway. Terminator 3, it just becomes a different date. So despite that, somehow something is pushing this to happen, even if it's not the same way.
And I think I know
Um,
what it is. I think I understand what it is.
well, I think it's
Writers.
I was about to say, I think it's plot devices.
Yeah, it's
So in
box
that
office.
in that sense, you can leave any piece of it you want if you're going to go that route.
Well, yeah, and
Um,
that makes it not part of that. That makes it part of anything goes time travel.
yeah, but it also I think lays out because the problem with the loop is that you can't do it without logical inconsistencies. It can't be done, except in a couple cases. There is one way that I can accept the one timeline uh, idea, and that's what was done. There's a couple instances I can think of, and I think there are probably more, where the people who instigate the change in the single timeline are specifically a star part of the story. They are insulated from its effect. So it's like they carry the old timelines with them. I think otherwise it doesn't work, right? And Back to the Future just sort of almost makes fun of the lack of logic of it otherwise. But in City on the Edge of Forever, you have
Hmm.
the Guardian of Forever. The timeline is changed, but you get the sense, they don't explicitly say it, but it's inferred that they're somehow protected from it because of their proximity and their interaction with the Guardian of Forever. Um,
Yeah, it
another,
seems like the Guardian is actually protecting certain kinds of conditions.
yes. The other one, the TARDIS in Doctor Who, there was an episode, it was an old one. It was a Tom Baker episode. So I could get the details wrong because I saw most of those when I was a lot younger. But I did just for purposes of this check the name. It was the Pyramids of Mars. I think it was this episode. Um, where without going into the details of the story, they're back in, I think it's like sort of Victorian era England, and there's an alien comes going to destroy the world, yada yada. Um, but Sarah Jane, who's the companion at the time, says, "But we don't have to worry about it. It doesn't work because here I am, you know."
Yeah.
And so it doesn't work. And the doctor says, "Are you sure about that? Come on, let's take a ride." And they go into the TARDIS, they travel to her time, they open it up, and the Earth is this molten wasteland. So then they get back in and go. And so in that case, you've got the TARDIS creating a sort of field of protection that keeps you out of the changes itself. So when they do that, when you've got a TARDIS, when you've got a Guardian of Forever, you create a plot device that takes away that inconsistency that's inescapable in those one timeline stories where
Yeah.
all the
So,
stuff you talk about in Terminator falls apart, which just means they can do whatever they want you know
right, right. That's an anything goes version of the
yeah,
time travel.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. It's a completely inconsistent, no rules. Hey, we can bring Genghis Khan forward in time, and he's not going to massacre everybody at the school. He's just going to tell them about how cool it was to be the guy in charge of the whole planet.
Right on. God, see, there's so many of these stories. It's
Yeah.
insane how many of them there are.
Well, and I think there's some interesting things they do with them. Like, even though they wrote themselves into a corner with Star Trek Enterprise and uh, the temporal Cold War.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what would happen, though.
Yeah.
Once everybody understood how to go back in time and affect the future, that would be going on all the time.
Yeah.
Once you had that technology, there would be no reason not to try and exploit it to get to where you became the dominant player on the planet.
Or just chaos, which is why one of my, even I'm going to say this is one of my favorite time travel stories, even though I don't remember it very well. So if I'm misremembering it, I may be making it into something better than it was. But the X-Files time travel episode, did you see that one?
No.
That was one where, the bad guy who's killing people, turns out he's from the future. And he's trying to, stop time travel from being developed because he's like, in the future, it's out of control. There's time travel,
Yeah.
cause and effect no longer have any meaning. It's chaos. And that's very interesting to me that if you had this, you'd create chaos. And
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, I think part of the another great example of that's exactly what happens if you do it is the movie The Butterfly Effect.
except that's almost, yeah, I mean, that's not chaos. That's a little different. That's like everything you do makes it worse. That's almost like
Well,
I mean,
in a
it's
way,
not true chaos. It's two directional. It's almost like you're being taught a lesson or something.
yeah. What I love is the original ending to that movie.
Oh, I don't even remember the regular ending to that movie. What's the original?
In the regular ending, he commits suicide. Once he gets to the timeline where everybody's okay, kills himself,
Oh, why
uh,
didn't I
and
remember that? I
and
didn't
that way
like that one.
everybody is all right. But the original ending, which they test screened and said, nope, audiences went, no, no, no. He kills himself, but he does it by strangling himself in the womb with his own umbilical cord.
Give me a break.
So actually, he doesn't kill himself in the original ending. In the original ending, I think he goes back to the he goes back to a time where he does not have a future with Amy Smart, and he doesn't mess with the timeline anymore.
Yeah,
He learns that, yeah, that's the original one.
that's what I was remembering, but I wasn't sure. I didn't
Yeah,
think it
that's
was
the original
quite
one.
that dark.
Yeah, no, it's the one that was is the one where he kills himself at the end by strangling himself in the womb with his umbilical cord. But I like that movie. I think that movie's an interesting movie. I mean, it comes up with the conclusion that you can't control what the timeline's going to be. It doesn't
Right.
matter what your motive is or your medium. That it's kind of like nuclear weapons.
Mhm.
People don't understand why nuclear weapons were invented. Nuclear weapons were invented to prevent conventional war between great powers.
God, I wonder if I would describe it that way myself. And given that they were invented they were invented just to win one particular
Right.
war.
But the strategy that ends up being used once they realize the devastation you can create is
Right, right. Once
that
they go
that
hydrogen, yeah.
yeah, that nuclear weapons are best employed strategically if the threat to use them is more efficient than actually using them.
Right, right. I don't
Because
think that's what I think the original was to win World War II, but then that
yes,
became
right.
their function.
But the strategy that gets built up once they use it, they, excuse me, they saw the futility of actually using them.
Right, mutual
And if you
assured destruction.
That's right. And what I think is great is, do you know how they came up with the idea of mutually assured destruction?
Oh God, I figure it was self-evident. Is there a story behind it?
Yes, there is a story behind it. Um, uh, so um, the guys you never hear about, you hear about Turing and you hear about Oppenheimer and you hear about uh, Einstein. The guys you never hear about are probably the people most responsible for winning World War II than anyone. And that's a pair of scientists, and I can't remember. I know the one. Uh, I know the first name of one of them, but it's von Neumann and Morgenstern. Von Neumann and Morgenstern created game theory and a model of understanding multiple courses of action and what their effects are And game theory is a branch of economics. It would now be called behavioral economics. And it's the people who invented game theory. Those ideas are the basis for Alan Turing's understanding of inventing the original computer. So I'll give you an example of what von Neumann and Morgenstern used their. This is pencil and paper economics. They use their equations to understand this. So you're a naval force, and you have different kinds of targets you might want to attack. But the problem is you don't want to get bogged down on one island.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hit the strategic points, the points that are going to do the most damage to the enemy, but you don't want to be bogged down on an island and use all your resources on that island when skipping that island is a better idea and attacking a different, less obvious target. Or if you are an infantry squad and you're approaching an artillery position which can rain chaos down on you, is it better to attack this and risk a certain amount of casualties, or would it be better to go around and isolate it and leave it alone? So they used mathematical equations to determine what the ideal outcome would be in this story. And the guy who really made this work was the scientist John Nash at Princeton, who developed what's called the Nash equilibrium, which is an outcome that allows there to be more than one successful condition given this kind of calculation.
Mm-hmm.
And von Neumann and Morgenstern, now I got lost here. What was I talking about?
Game theory.
Yeah, but why game theory was important?
Because they're the most significant ones.
No, I don't remember what my conclusion was now, damn it.
Oh, you've got the process, but you don't have the goal.
Yeah, I got the process of how I got there.
Oh no, that's all right. This is what, it's the joy of podcasts, right? We just kind of ramble. It's great.
So, what was I going to say about von Neumann and Morgenstern? Oh, we were talking about the genesis of strategy for nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So they used two simple games to develop the strategy of mutually assured destruction. Chicken.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're in a car, somebody else is in the car, you're speeding toward each other at the highest possible speed. And the whole point of chicken is to make sure that the other guy swerves, right? If he swerves, you win his car, you get his pink slip, you're the victor.
Right.
And then the other one is poker. So what they did was they combined the principles of poker and chicken. So how does this work? This works this way. Have you noticed that the United States has never said they would never use nuclear weapons first?
I have not noticed that.
Russia said that. Russia said that in the 50s. We are never going to be the people to use nuclear weapons first.
Mm-hmm.
The United States has never said that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Why?
Well, to maximize the deterrent effect, I assume.
Because you want them to know that option is always on the table.
Right.
But whether or not you effect that option is the real key. So what did they decide? Von Neumann and Morgenstern say the way to win chicken is to put a brick on your accelerator and jump in the back seat.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's why we don't tell anybody we're not going to use weapons first. The other one, poker. How do you think poker is important in understanding whether or not to use nuclear weapons?
Well, you don't let your opponent have all the details. It's not like a chess game where you can see how many pawns,
Yeah, it's what is the strategy of bluffing?
Oh, there's bluffing, sure.
Bluffing.
Well, yeah, okay.
Am I threatening to use these weapons, or do I really intend to use the weapons?
Mm-hmm.
So when you combine that uncertainty with the ability, with the notion that you might be just crazy enough to use these nuclear weapons, so people don't end up bombing each other. So what has happened here is that until you have nuclear weapons, there's this kind of, I wouldn't call it a cycle because it doesn't happen in regular periods, but there's this pattern of you have a big war that involves all the major powers and millions of people die and the change of the the change of history, the course of history has changed. And then later on, you build up powers, and then you have another big power war. And look, lots of people were killed with nuclear weapons. But if you look at conventional wars, a whole lot more people died from conventional wars than from nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. And just because it's possible that you could kill more people with nuclear weapons, that's kind of a self-defeating, self-limiting concept. And so the idea of a temporal Cold War is interesting to me, to loop back to what we're actually talking about.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
Is you would eventually come to the conclusion that threatening to use time travel as a weapon to get the outcomes you want is better than actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's why people talk about, well, Putin is going to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Is he? He's going to threaten to use them, but wouldn't he end up a whole lot more isolated? And wouldn't the world end up being a whole lot more chaotic if he does?
A whole lot worse. Yeah.
Because, the thing is, people who start wars, they start wars because they want to stay in power, not because they want to be forced from power.
Well, of course. Right.
And so if you, and anyway, but the point is that this is a big, powerful weapon. If you have the ability to travel back in time and change the outcomes of the future, then this is a big, chaotic weapon, and using it even once could have much more consequences to you than you know of. And I think really what makes time travel interesting is the idea of unintended consequences.
Right. Well, that's often that's the point of a lot of these stories, really.
Yeah. And I think that, but I think people who watch these things don't think about that. I think it's naturally subsumed in the genre itself. And so you don't think, oh, well, what are the possible unintended consequences before you start this? So really, time travel just seems to me, if you use the logic of time travel, it seems like it's a great solution to things. But in reality, you never try to use it. Never, ever, ever try to use it if possible.
Mm-hmm.
That would have to be the absolute last resort strategy.
If that, right.
To use it for some kind of national ends, because it's probably going to end up in chaos. And very much the same way as nuclear weapons. Once that knowledge is out there, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Right. Unless you go back in time and stop it.
Yeah, but then you'd have just as many people going back in time to stop you from stopping it.
If it's many worlds theory. If it's the same one timeline.
Well, no. Even if it's not, you could end up with an infinite loop of infinite time loops to stop or allow the discovery of time travel.
Yeah, but then that's got to end because movies are only like 2 hours long.
Well, now it seems like what we're doing is getting into a convergence of all the different styles.
Yeah.
So that's the movie to make. The movie to make is one that combines all 9 different concepts.
That actually could be a lot of fun in a just sort of in a book more than a movie. That's hilarious. I'll write that one day. That'll be good.
Yeah. So what you do is you write 9 different scenarios and 9 different outcomes for the same set of events.
Mm-hmm. And you'd have something incomprehensible to read or watch. And that would be the point, right?
Well, I just thought of an example where you could actually do that, where it would be incomprehensible. Have you read the story or seen the movie Rashomon?
I have not. I know that's bad that I have not.
No. Rashomon's not really science fiction. Well, actually, I think it is. I think it would fit our show of science fiction that doesn't know it's science fiction. Rashomon just tells the same tale from the perspectives of three different participants in the same conflict.
Right. Okay.
And you know, it's essentially an exercise in perspective and understanding people's perspectives by their point of view. But that's a way you could write that novel, where you have nine different stories, nine different sets of actors, and each of the actors experiences time travel in that specific framework.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I can see how you'd write this, but I'm too lazy to do it.
Yeah.
So,
It'd be very niche crowd reading it anyways, but
so,
we
so
should
if you're, go
we
ahead.
should probably start wrapping this up because we've covered so much and we probably confuse people as much as time travel confuses people.
Well, you
Um,
know, I think that's really the appeal of these stories is they make you figure stuff out.
yes,
They make you think through the consequences of your actions. They make you look at the perspective based on whatever framework you do. It makes you think, and I think that's really interesting.
if they're
I
done
think that's why
right.
it's so popular.
Yeah, if they're done right. Well, they know even if they've done wrong, you think about it. So you're right. It's just inherent to the plot device, right? Um, Before we go, I just because I'm such a geek, I want to go down the quick list just to make the point of what a mess Star Trek has made of time travel. All right. So we've got the whiplash effect, right? That's one
Yeah,
way. That's the one in the movie, which has its absurdities where they beam people back into themselves, but that's another story. We have
yeah.
the controlled implosion to restart the cold engines where you start moving back more slowly. We have the Guardian of Forever.
Yeah.
And generally with Star Trek, it's the one timeline story. But the Guardian of Forever, we find out can move sideways because there is a mirror universe.
Yeah.
So that's inconsistent right there. Just overall, do we have multiple? Anyways, there's wormholes that pop
Hmm.
up like yesterday's Enterprise. Then we get into where they just stop caring, where we get the chronotons, which seem to do
Yeah.
whatever they want. You know, you see people with their hip side remote controls. There's the ribbon in
Huh? Yep.
Generations. Like, what the heck is that? So, anyways, they have done this so much, and it is such a mush that, you know, I just forget what a fundamental part of to Star Trek time travel is and how much they've done well with it and bungled it all over the place. But anyways, I
My favorite
wanted
one
to
is the one
list them.
from,
Go ahead.
yeah. My favorite one is the one from Voyager,
Which one?
where you have the ship, where you have the ship that goes around space-time, different dimensions, and destroys entire
Oh,
realities.
that's a good story where it's yeah, it's erasing timelines to try to erase its enemy.
Yep.
That
The,
is the Year of Hell, I think.
yep. It's the Star Trek TVA.
That's a really good episode.
Well, and
A
that makes
couple
sense. This
episodes.
is gets back to what I was just talking about how
Mm.
if you have this technology, you would use it as a weapon against everyone else.
Yeah.
But you might also find that it's too complicated. You create too much, you know, the unintended consequences of using it as a weapon would limit your ability or even your desire to use it as a weapon.
Mm.
Because if you know, this is like chemical weapons. You know, the reason why nobody uses chemical weapons anymore?
No, they don't want to be the first one to do it, right?
Well, because it'll blow right back into you.
I was about to say there's some mutual assured horribleness
Well,
that
and
goes
you
on.
know, the conspiracy theorists during the pandemic. Oh, this is a virus designed to wipe out people by XYZ, the Chinese.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear that
Um,
about Lyme disease, about AIDS. That's just a go-to
well,
conspiracy theory. It's so
our
goofy.
mutual friend Nathan Zing pointed something out. He said, you would not create an mRNA virus to kill your opponents. You would create a virus which works on a different mechanism. So you could inoculate all your forces, set the virus out in nature, and then you would never die, but all your enemies would.
Mirror life. Mirror
What?
life. Mirror life. That's what it'll be.
Mirror Life. That was a great episode episode of Voyager. That's one of the best episodes of
Wait, Mirror
Voyager.
Life? I know. I mean the actual concept that everyone's terrified of Mirror Life, of
Oh,
DNA,
okay, okay. I was very
DNA
confused.
that
Yeah, yeah.
wraps the other way, that
Yeah.
would kill us all, and that we're
Oh, yeah,
about
that's the
right on
real
the edge of
thing.
making. Yeah, yeah. There you go. That's the.
But his point is you would never create an mRNA virus that would, designed to destroy your enemies because half your people would die too.
Mhm. Sure, if you're
So, I
smart.
mean, what we've talked about, what we've really gotten into, and which we could even do a show on, I think, would be time travel as a weapon.
Hmm.
I think we could do an episode on time travel as a weapon to see who did it the best.
Yeah, we could do that. Wouldn't be as long and
Right.
rambly as the one we're just doing right now.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry I led you guys. I led everybody off into a thing about World War II's and strategy
Oh
and
no, it was all over the place. We were all over the place. Like I say, much like the whole concept in fiction. So there you go, it works.
all right.
But all right, so I think we're done for this time around. We'll see you next time. And next time, I think unless I put these in the wrong order, we're going to talk about fascism. So we
Fascism in science fiction.
yeah,
Okay,
we
thanks. It was great, John. We'll talk to everybody later.
say ya.
Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.